Alright, what's going on guys, it's your boy Ethos here. Today I am bringing you the new maps including Icebox and Lotus, the new updated maps. I'm super excited to go right into them. We're also going to be reviewing the new skins and also the new gun, the Outlaw. But overall the main focus will be the maps, so let's get right into it. So first and foremost, getting into it right here. But as far as I know, most of the changes will be here in mid, B, and then also attacker spawn as well. So immediately coming up, I already noticed that this is no longer an angle right here. Now I think this is a little bit nicer too, because when you peek mid, there's also the issue of potentially being spotted by anyone in T-spawn holding for the lurk or the push. This simplifies clearing mid as a defender, and I kind of like that a little bit, honestly. Next, moving forward, let's go from the T side now, because I think most of the changes will be seen from the T side here. Looks like they've opened up the space quite a bit, so basically disallowing for a lot of the defenders plays to hold this and be kind of deceptive. You know, there's a lot of ways you could play up here, they could tuck here, they could play up here, they could even updraft at right before the barrier drops and get on top of this as well, which made it kind of annoying and a little bit tricky for attackers to take. Now it seems that getting B main control will be a lot more fair, and honestly probably be a lot more tricky for defenders to hold. They'll have to rely more on utility and proper positioning versus playing different off angles and bait switches. But going in immediately, a lot of these mid angles seem very familiar, but if you go up tube, they've added this box as well as this window, which is probably the biggest thing. Obviously you can peek boiler people and you can peek into here. This will allow for a more methodical process in taking mid, because here you can clear up to these angles pretty safely without having to actually cross under tube, which was a big issue before. If there was someone holding under tube holding that cross, it was quite difficult. You used to have that mid orb up for that reason specifically. Coming up the ramp, it doesn't seem as much of a one-on-one death trap. It allows for a little bit, kind of just a little bit more strategic position you can take to take these fights here. Next up, going mid to B here. Immediately, I mean, there's a giant difference here. This is completely blocked off. You can see that this is no longer a thing. Splitting through mid has been simplified a lot, whereas instead of there being 3 lanes, this, and then hallway, now it's literally just outside and hallway, which I think will, one, make it a lot easier for defenders to hold mid again. They've made mid a lot more simple for defense. Also, it's a little bit easier to get up into spots without being contested, but actually taking the site might prove difficult for the offense. Here I like this a lot because this allows for a lot more kitchen plays without having to worry about this. Jumping up to here doesn't seem as much of a death trap. This does favor the attack side because they can come into kitchen a lot more cleanly, especially splitting with a tube guy without having to worry about anyone from hull or top side holding them. Now running into the B side, this is completely walled off, so I guess this will now be an angle you'll have to potentially be worried about when coming in. You have to hard clear that, and also of course this as well will also be an angle you have to hold. So I think that this will be a natural angle to clear. It won't really be an off angle, but it will still be something you have to be, you know, considerate of. East side looks pretty much the same, honestly. I think all the angles are the same, all the boxes are the same, so I'm pretty sure that this will play out pretty similarly to how Icebox typically has. I like that they kind of adjust the map in sections, and instead of changing the entire map, they're focusing on mid and B, which I like that a lot. So overall, I think that they've made mid an option for attackers to default better, but harder for them to actually execute from, whereas B main is now more of an option to take as an attacker as well, and probably easier to just execute through. For defense, their options will be a little bit more limited when it comes to B main, but a little bit more optimized towards mid and a little bit more simplified when holding a B split. But this also allows for attackers to abuse the mid space more into potentially an A split, because now they can clear up to this point with a lot of different angles and a lot of different positions. So I think that we'll probably see a lot more A splits, because on Icebox in the past, prehistorically, typically it was A hit, B hit, or B splits, and those were all happening pretty fast. The main defaults were just being like start A, maybe work up B, start B, maybe work up A. And then mid was typically something you either exploded through or you had a lurk go through. But now I think we'll be able to see a lot more splits through mid. Anyways, overall, that is the Icebox changes. Let me know what you guys think, and let's move on to Lotus. Moving on to Lotus, I think that there's a lot more to work with in Icebox. Actually, obviously, I think whereas Icebox's focus was more on how the default rounds played out, how the mid round played out, you know, the mid parts, the kind of gray areas of the map, if you will, how those are taken and what sides have the advantage there, I think was the focus of Icebox. I think on Lotus is actually the opposite. I think in Lotus, what the changes impacted the most were the encounters that would be happening in sight versus what happens in the mid area or in the main area. So first off, immediately looking here at A site is completely different. If you remember, the kind of mid-side tube would go from here to here. Now this is completely blocked off, which this allows for a lot more cover to fight behind, and also the ability to stay alive perhaps a bit easier. But I think that this might also make clearing sight a bit more simplified as well. Whereas the only big caveat to when you're clearing it is that you're gonna have to hard clear this potentially, but it'll still be difficult if you are getting crunched from both sides to be able to end this off. It doesn't necessarily favor one side or the other, but I think that T side will have a bit of an easier time planting, but defense will also have a better time retaking as well, because people won't be able to play inside here when they're heaven dropping. So looking towards A main, this is the big change to the main that I've noticed. Obviously slant is now gone. Now it's an actual corner with cover as well, which I like a lot, because a lot of Lotus, the A fight was a very was a huge trademark of this map, similar to how I see people fighting for a long on Haven, but even more so because a lot of people would have to expend a whole lot of utility to take this site with a nade, a suck, an eye, an omen blind from door one way, and then to get out you'd see a lot of people committing maybe double satchels or omen TP or dash or Yoru TP, neon wall. Lots of utility had to be expended at the beginning of the round if both sides were fighting for it. So you often would see the round get decided here towards this A main earlier on. And I know as a defender that it was quite difficult fighting for A main unless you had equal numbers and equal utility fighting here as well. If you kind of got stuck on this slant position and this door wasn't broken, it was kind of difficult to really contest for that unless you had your entire team there with you as well. Moving on to God here, this corner was now added by extending this wall. So now clearing God is a little bit more difficult. You have to not only worry about just this angle and then this immediate angle and all other angles of the pie here. You also have to worry about potentially someone ratting in this corner, and it makes it a little bit more annoying because there could be, again, before the real setup to hold God was something like this, or Bard using mollies or utility to slow it down. It was some guy playing here, one guy swinging off contact here, which was the most simple way to hold it and really contest for it. Now coming in, not only will that setup be more effective, but you'll also have to clear this side and they can play it like this as well. I'm actually quite excited to use this box though. For when people start coming out A, I think that this will be a great spot to actually fight from and tuck from. It'll make soloing and fighting for A little bit harder, and you'll be able to delay a bit longer and have a little bit more options when it comes to taking these fights. You won't get stuck by a wall out in the open. You'll be able to take your fights, tuck even from the rubble guy, and they won't be able to fully swing you unless they get up to this point. Now moving on towards the B side, they've extended this wall over towards here. Now if I switch sides here, you will be able to see exactly what the bomb layout is. Before, you were able to plant right here in front of this box here and kind of plant there. Now they've opened this up a lot. I like this a lot because I've always felt B to be a bit claustrophobic. When you took B in the past, you always had to take either C-Link, A-Link, or B Heaven if you really wanted to be in that round, unless you had some insane ults and insane utility to play post plant. But for the most part, playing B post plant was very difficult, especially if they were already ready to flood. And this is the same kind of situation that you see in Haven a lot, except you had less cover on this map. Because if you try to take B fast, the A players will be rotated here, the Heaven guy will be here, and the C players will be rotated here, and they'll just be banging out utility. They'll be flooding before you can even get the spike planted. Now this will be a little bit more problematic for players to flood through, now that there's a little bit more cover to dodge flashes and mollies and omen blinds, and as such will not be as simple to get as much cover and be guaranteed to hit as many people. So now it'll be a lot more simple to actually play in sight and to give the attackers in the post Lotus planners a little bit more protection from the flood and the pre-take, or whatever you want to call it. A huge thing is that when you plant, you won't just be pushed out into the open like this. If you get mollied, you can kind of just fall back into here instead, versus having to go wide out to avoid nades and mollies. So overall, I think that balances B quite a bit more well. Honestly, I think that a lot of people didn't like planting B, and for a good reason. It was a hard site to hold, but now it's definitely a little bit more balanced in favor. It's definitely a bit more balanced towards attackers. Moving on towards C site now. As you can tell immediately, this is a lot more open. So I think that honestly, having played Killjoy a bunch of tournaments before and having to hold this site solo, I felt that this site was sometimes just impossible to hold, as depending on the other team and their utility. I really like the fact that they've kind of opened up this space a lot, and they've made it a lot more breathable for defenders to play. There's now the option of playing up here and swinging off this guy versus just swinging off the turret. They removed this tall box here. As you can tell, there used to be a double stack here and an angle here. Now they've simplified this corner to just being this jump up, and now when you retake, you won't have to worry about people ratting behind this box and trigger disciplining all of you guys. You'll just have to clear it, and boom, the second you come give this a jiggle both sides from waterfall or spawn, you'll know that this guy is not there. Also for just holding the site in general, this and this are absolutely massive. Before, this used to be a very small box and a very narrow lane, but also this also makes it a little bit more difficult to get value out of things like an Omen Paranoia or a Breach Stun. While these will still be strong while they come to the choke, if they can get out wide, then it'll be a little bit more dangerous for you to take this fight if you wait for them to come in. Typically, as an Omen or a Breach, you'd wait for them to get into about here to make sure that they couldn't run away after you blind, and you could just swing them. But now if you wait for them to get out of here, it'll be a little bit more tricky, because now they can go out wide and then duck whatever flash or stun you throw, and if you do try to throw it this way, you run the risk of getting peeked by someone over here. So that is one caveat to making this a little bit more defense sided, is that there's give and take to everything. That play might not be as effective anymore. I like though how they've extended the bomb site to down here. You can plant anywhere over here. This makes planning for C a lot easier. This is a balance in favor of the attacker's side. Now you can kind of plant here and have this still be a decent plant spot, while also still avoiding getting shot by these guys. Looks like you can plant here and potentially plant. It's not going to be as ideal as this, but I think that from the way it looks, that you can still pretty much see this from mound, and you don't have to really necessarily expose yourself to this. But again, you will still have to be exposing yourself to waterfall players who can spam it like that. So it'll still be open to one way or the other. Before planning for this, this will be open to spawn, but it won't be open to waterfall as much unless they want to come out here to peek. But now you'll have to choose. You can now at least choose. Maybe your team took waterfall, so then you can plan for your team took spawn, now you can plan for here. You have the option there, which I like a lot. Is kind of giving more variability and ways to play the site and ways to hold it. So I think that Riot did a great job with C site. But overall, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Overall, they've made big changes to all three of the sites. I think that Lotus will be not a completely different map, but it will be a very different map in terms of the way that it's played out, in terms of the way things are taken and things are held. So I'm super excited to see how Lotus plays out, honestly more than Icebox. But let me know what you guys are more excited for. Are you guys more excited for Icebox? Are you guys more excited for Lotus? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.